Hi everyone, I hope all of you guys are doing well. When I was preparing for UPSC and I was an aspirant, a lot of times I used to face a problem that probably a lot of you also face. And that problem is that while studying, some days you get extremely demotivated. You don't have that flow or you don't have that consistency that otherwise you have. And because of this break in your consistency, you become really stressed and you become really worried how to continue your preparation. Even as an aspirant, I used to face it every month or so, sometimes even continuously for a few days, for 1 week, 2 weeks. You would feel not into the studies, not into the preparation mode, and some negative thought might come, or sometimes no thoughts would come into your mind. You would even not know why you're feeling this way, and maybe that is because of some kind of a burnout, some kind of a lack of progress that you might be seeing, or it could have other various reasons because of which you are feeling that way. But I'm going to tell you 5 or 6 things today so that you can actually address these kind of problems and you can actually tangibly or in reality apply these kind of techniques and perhaps be able to come out of this kind of mindset that happens sometimes. So the first thing I think you should do when you're feeling stressful is that you should not study something that is making you stressed. Try to switch to something that is very light, that is easy. So during this kind of a time, you could switch to some kind of a subject which is easier to study, in which you don't have to actively use your mind so much, or you don't have to focus too much. So this kind of light studying, what will it help in is, number one, it will maintain your consistency. You will be able to continue what you have been doing before. Number two, you will be able to have the same kind of confidence. You will not lose your confidence because you have missed out on a lot of days of studies. So just try to switch to something less stressful and more easy, whatever it is. So for example, in my case, I used to find studying environment something very, very interesting. It was a subject that I used to find interesting. I used to find it lighter. I used to genuinely like studying it. So that's why I would switch to environment and just read through the books, through the pages. So in this kind of study, I would not do a lot of application based study. I would not try to remember things, memorize things, or I would not try to too much to understand things. I would just casually study through the various pages. So one of the things you can do is you can just look at the pictures that are given in the books. So for example, NCERT book has certain pictures. You can also look at some online Google pictures. You can do Google search for the image and then you can find certain related pictures. So that way your mind is now not in this stress mode when you're reading continuously, when you're trying to understand, when you're trying to apply that knowledge. Now your mind is in a more comfortable state where it is just kind of learning the information but in a more casual and an easy way, and that way you are able to retain that information. You're able to do a lot of passive studies and you are actually able to enjoy that particular process. So looking at the photos of various topics in books or on Google search, or just casually revising through your old notes. You might have some old notes, you can casually revise through those. Or you can even make lists of various topics that have come in old question papers of UPSC and you can just use that later on to study more. So for example, I used to, let's say I was feeling stressed, I was not feeling like studying, I would just pull out an old PYQ, previous year question paper from UPSC website. I would just go through the questions quickly. I would not try to solve them and I would just take a look which topics are the questions coming from. And then I would write those topics on a sheet of paper like this. I would just write those on a plain sheet of paper and I would use this to revise or to study later further more detail into this topic. So what it does is, first of all, you are able to go through a certain list of topics that otherwise might actually come in the paper. So you are doing productive work, but at the same time, you are not stressing yourself too much. You are not trying to push yourself too much when you are having this a little run of unproductivity. All right. The second thing I would do, and the second thing I found very useful, was taking walks. And while I was taking these walks, I would go ahead and just try to revise in my mind what I had studied in the last 30 to 60 days. So I would go on short walks in the park in front of my house, or I would just go on the road, go to the market. And while I'm doing that, I would actually actively use my memory to try to figure out what did I study a few days back, what were the various major topics I studied, what were the major concepts, who were the major authors or personalities, or what were the major events in that particular thing. I would try to remember or recall the major points from that particular topic, and this way I was able to actually do a lot of passive study when I was feeling a little stressful, when I was feeling a little unproductive. The third thing I would want you to do as in such times would also be that you talk to your fellow aspirants. If you're living in Old Rajendra Nagar, Karol Bagh, or anywhere else, or if you have some friends who are writing UPSC exam, or even if you don't have friends who are writing UPSC exam, if you just know people, your friends, just talk to them about topics you're studying in UPSC and just have discussions with them, free flowing discussions. You can have discussions on any kind of current affair topics that are there. Ukraine war is going on, elections in India. You can talk about any kind of topics and you can have your opinions. You can tell them your opinions and try to figure out what kind of opinions you have. Try to just analyze whether are these opinions from the newspaper you are studying. You might be reading Hindu or the Indian Express, and those opinions might be reflecting in your own opinions. So just try to objectively study that. This will give you a nice perspective of your own preparation. It will also refresh your mind, and it will also help you to go from a monotonous mindset or this process of reading every day to a process of talking it out and discussing it, because that is also very, very useful sometimes. But I don't think that you should do it on a daily basis. I think you should try to do it maybe once in a month or something, because otherwise you will waste a lot of time doing this kind of discussions. The other thing you can do is also listen to music. What I used to do was I used to listen to some nice music, put on my earphones or just play it on my laptop on the speakers or something, and I would just listen to some music for 10-15 minutes a day, 1 hour a day. Days I was feeling unproductive, because what music does is it actually refreshes your mind. It actually kind of, you need a massage for your body to open those knots that you have in body. Similarly, music is the massage for the mind. It opens the knots that are in the mind. So I would say that you do that sometimes when you're feeling unproductive. It will really help you, and at that time don't do anything else. The other thing, the fifth thing that I would like you to do is also you can break the routine with the subject that you're studying and go into some completely different subject which you actually like. So you might have finished, for example, let's say economics, and you really like economics, but right now you're studying polity and you are not able to focus on polity. So go back to economics, revise, use the time which is unproductive to go back to a subject which you are actually good at or which you actually like, and revise it even more. Go to your optional, revise it more. This way what you will be able to do is break that monotony. See, in UPSC there are two times. One times is when you have to finish things and you are under a deadline, because after that only you will be able to revise things. So at that time you will not have that much monotony, because this is the first time you're studying the syllabus. But after that, once you read it again and again and again, there might be some monotony developing. So at that time when this monotony starts developing, what you need to do is you will actually need to cut off that particular subject and go to something else that you really like, and that way it will really, really help you to rewind your mind, rewire your brain, and start with the studies again and feel a lot more productive. Finally, one more thing I would do is I would actually read some good blogs related to UPSC or not, some entertaining blogs. You don't have to take the advice of these blogs, or you don't have to take even my advice on its face value, but what reading the blogs or reading some different kind of ideas and thoughts, it helps you to again refresh your mind, and you are able to think in a different manner, and that is very, very useful for UPSC purposes, I feel. So I think these 6 techniques: number 1, switch to something light studies when you're feeling unproductive. You can look at old previous question papers, make list of various subjects, topics from that, casually revising old notes, looking at various pictures of those subjects. Secondly, taking a walk and then in your mind thinking about the various topics you've studied in the last 30 to 60 days, talking to fellow aspirants. All these things I've told you today, I hope they help you. And remember, the journey is long. It is a tough journey. It is going to have lots of ups and downs. It's like walking through mountains. You will go up, you will come down in the valley, then you will go up. But eventually the peak is there. And if you reach that peak, you will really feel on the top of the world. So I hope don't lose your motivation because of people outside. Don't lose your motivation because of these kind of dry patches when you are not able to figure out what's going on. You are feeling unproductive. But develop ways to get through those patches so that you are consistent, and I'm very sure that you will be able to do very well. So best of luck. I hope you enjoyed today's class session, and